if you're a women entrepreneur, it's sort of, you've got to value yourself. People can tell whether you do or you don't. So, waiting for someone else to value you is waiting for permission to stand up and be yourself. And people won't value you until you value yourself.
In today's episode, I am so excited to have as a guest a very, very special person, beautiful soul, Dr. Samantha Madosing.
Yep.
Dr. Samantha is a licensed psychologist, best-selling author, and speaker. She received her doctorate in professional psychology from the George Washington University and has dedicated more than 20,000 hours to researching, understanding, and solving the infinite possibilities of human potential, behavior, and performance. Dr. Samantha is the founder. Dr. Samantha is the founder and CEO of Elevate Her, and organizations serving women leaders and interested men in business and in life by providing key strategies to rewire their brains, achieve mastery in mindset, communication, and relationship, and ultimately create a legacy of lasting wealth. Through her programs, trainings, and workshops, she guides audiences and clients through powerful experiences that help them face their fears, shatter glass ceilings, step into their own power, and achieve exponential growth and fulfillment. Dr. Samantha has a unique ability to help clients and audiences go deep and move forward. Her cutting-edge system was built on principles of neuroscience, human potential, positive psychology, cognitive therapy, leadership, and coaching to deliver fast, life-changing results. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Francesca. It's very, very amazing to be here with you today. So I'm really excited.
So, Dr. Samantha, I have to ask, how in the world did you get to do what you do? What got you into psychology in the first place before getting to what you do? But what got you into getting that?
Well, it's been a really long time. I mean, I started doing my doctorate back in the 90s, which feels like an absolute lifetime ago. I always wanted to be able to help people. And when I was a teenager, I wished that I had someone there to help me and support me. And, I actually, when I was living in Florida at the time, before I went to George Washington, to DC to do my doctorate. And in the job that I was doing, I was working with kids, and they had all these, had all these, traumatic experiences in their life. And what I was doing wasn't really enough. And I wanted to do more, and I wanted to help more. And so that's what took me to DC to do my degree.
And then what transitioned you to getting your degree into helping entrepreneurs? Because that's what you mean.
It's so interesting, but that's actually a longer story. When I got my degree, my interest was always in helping kids. And my first job after getting my degree was providing mental health services in a school in inner city DC. Through the Department of Mental Health. So we did, prevention services. I worked in a boarding school, a public boarding school in Washington, D.C. And I loved what I did. I worked with middle and high school kids. And, I had that job for 4 years, helped met some amazing young people who had all sorts of things happen to them in their lives. Then I got promoted, and I got another job within the Department of Mental Health, also working on behalf of children, but more of an administrative role. And then I went to work at a psychiatric hospital and managed to stay there for only 8 months because the environment was really toxic, and not because of the issues that the kids had, but because of the environment of the organization itself. And so I just decided on the spot that I wanted to be my own boss. I didn't want somebody else to be, yanking my chain in one area or the other, and that I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny and my own time and have freedom. At the time, I had a 2-year-old. My daughter is now 10. And I was being asked to work more than 50 hours a week. And I was like, I can't do anymore. And even when I started my business, I started with the intention and the focus of working with kids. And however, the number one question I kept getting asked was, do you work with adults? And so I started working with adults. And then I started networking and going and meeting other women and other entrepreneurs primarily. And then I thought, I can help these people. And I always tell people that, to be quite honest, one of the main reasons why I think I'm really um, highly skilled and get such great results with my clients is because of my training in working with children. Because most of the beliefs and the, I'm not good enough stories that people carry with themselves as adults are rooted in something that happened in childhood. And so my background, in psychology and having a certification in coaching makes me uniquely qualified to be able to help people move forward. And so it kind of just developed from there. Like it wasn't never, this was never my initial intention. However, I will also say that working with adults makes things so much better for children, because when you shift mindsets in adults, who they think themselves to be and how they then treat their children, how they raise their children, how they speak to their children becomes completely different. And so then you change the world for the children, but by working with the adults. So it's actually a sort of a double-pronged approach, but it works beautifully.
What a beautiful way to look at it. Like I
Yeah,
hadn't even thought of that, because we tend to be so focused on ourselves and like,
right.
my mindset, and not really, but you're right. It automatically changes how we shift,
Yes.
how we communicate. And
Yes.
also it helps us understand, at least I find that it helps us understand other people who may be going through some limiting beliefs of their own when we're working on
Absolutely.
ourselves. Now,
Yeah.
the reason I asked you to be part of this show, Dr. Samantha, is because I've been one of those that could have very easily been one of your patients. I struggled for years and years and years with very horrible limiting beliefs. And I know I'm
Mhm,
not a unique case, like
mhm.
the not feeling good enough, not feeling smart
Yep.
enough, the not feeling pretty enough, or whatever, all of it.
Yeah.
And, don't deserve the money. It's not for me, la, la, la. And it's because of the environment. Like you say, it's because of the
Yeah.
language that is around you growing
Yes.
up, right?
Growing up. Yes. It's
Yeah.
it's from, I was talking about this today in my talk. It's from, we're all conditioned, men and women, from the moment we are born, our brain is taking in information. And people call it brainwashing. Well, we're all brainwashed in one way or the other. Our brain is conditioned and primed and hardwired from the moment we're born, as we're taking in experiences, every day, all day. So both, from our families, from our siblings, from parents, from teachers, from peers, from society. What messages have we all been given that is, what is a woman's role? Where should women be? How are women valued or not valued in society? So those are like coded messages that our brain picks up, and it gives us a sense of what we then think we're worth. And so there's a lot of work to be done. And what I find with people, even clients I've had in the past, they do a lot of work and they do really well, and then they need an upgrade because they've moved on to another level, they've expanded in some way, and then they've reached that new inner glass ceiling, and then they need to shift again. And so the work, I think, is never really done, because we're always evolving and growing. And we can use the same tools to keep helping ourselves to shift and to grow and to elevate ourselves into the next level.
hmm So, do you find that, and I know based on reading your bio, that you work primarily mostly with women, but you do have some men that you work with as
Yes.
well. Would you say that the biggest, because I'm guessing there is a very common, most common and limiting belief that we have. Is there a limiting belief that men have that is different than women, or are we all the same when it comes to the big issue, the biggest issue?
It shows up differently. I think in women you see I'm not good enough all over the place, in one way or another. And it's, for women, it's about how we look, about what we're worth, about, how far we can go because we're women. What is an appropriate role for women? How do we communicate as a woman? Whether or not I find a lot of women, I need to help them find their voice, to speak up, to be comfortable and confident in speaking out and asking for what you want, and to take your place at the table without keep asking. Women are notorious for apologizing for where, who they are and where they are, and asking for permission. Men don't ask for permission. Men have limiting beliefs that are related to, not feeling good enough, but men often see themselves as the provider. And so it's around, okay, so how do I provide enough for my family, for example? And, they may be afraid to take risks, or there may have been something that happened in their life that had them thinking that they weren't qualified to do X, Y, and Z. But men and women's brains are wired differently. But that doesn't mean that we're not equal, or I'm not saying that, but our brains are wired differently because our conditioning is different. So the information we're getting from society is so different that what we feel we're capable of is different. Yeah. And then there's a few of us who are rebels.
Very few, yes.
We're like, what do you mean I can't do it? Yes, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you. So
yeah, well, for me personally, it's been a whole transition, because I was, like I said before, I come from a background where I felt like I wanted to do things, but I didn't feel like I could.
Yes.
I didn't feel that it was for me. It was wishful thinking.
Yes.
And it's still in progress. It's always, like you said, it's always a work in progress. You always have to keep working and rewiring and
always rewiring.
Always rewiring.
It takes practice. I mean, we keep practicing, and so we'll set a goal for ourselves, and then you wire to that goal. And then once you've blown that goal out the water, it's like, oh, we're going somewhere else. It's like, am I okay to do this much, right? And so it is about just being open to receiving the abundance that's available, right? But again, because of the wiring, because of what the messages that we get from parents, from society in particular, like the media is, when I was talking about this too today, the stories that we read to children, specifically to girls, the amount of, heroines we see as women, as girls in media is minimal. When we read fairy tales to girls, what are we telling them? We're telling them, wait for a man to come and rescue you, right? A man's going to come and save you and rescue you and take care of you. And that is your role. And, these stories are cute and everything, but I remember when I was reading them to my daughter, I used to make my stomach turn. And we would, when she started to get a little bit older, I would have conversations with her, doesn't this seem weird to you that this young woman is 17 and all she's concerned about is getting married? Like, there's so much other stuff she could be doing. So, at 5 and 4, we started having conversations about this stuff. But what's available for us to share with children is minimal. And so the conditioning begins there.
Wow. Like, truly. It's scary to think about that, like to know that there's not enough out there that is setting the young woman's brain, or conditioning the young woman's brain to really go for the full potential.
Correct. And absolutely. And then what you also, if you think about it, because what are we teaching the boys? We're teaching boys that they have to be the hero and come and save the woman, and that she's not strong enough to take care of herself, which is ridiculous, right? And so, we're not teaching young boys or young men about, what it means to have strong women and to treat women equally in society. We're still not there yet.
So what would you give, like, what kind of advice or tips would you give to, let's just say, women who are entrepreneurs and they're really holding back? This is something that they could do, like, right now, if they're going through this, I don't feel good enough, I'm not worth it, because that also reflects how much they charge or undercharge.
Oh my gosh,
right?
yes.
And then it's like
it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. It's like,
one of the things that I said today, and this is, whether you're if you're a woman entrepreneur, it's sort of, you've got to value yourself. People can tell whether you do or you don't. So, waiting for someone else to value you is waiting for permission to stand up and be yourself. And people won't value you until you value yourself. And so taking that hard look at the behaviors that you have and how they might be getting in your way. And so the first thing I always tell people is start with self-awareness. What's the conversation that's going on in your head? Like, what sort of things are you saying to yourself? And so you want to pay attention to that. When you notice, because you will notice that your words are really kind of negative, then that has to stop. Because beating yourself up and some people are like, oh, but it's self-deprecating. No, putting yourself down is never the answer. Like, I just don't believe that. And pay attention to the words that you're using, because words create your reality. And so if you keep saying, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, they're going to find out that I don't really know this, or, whatever, you're going to create that negative energy around yourself. And that, obviously, you don't want to do that. I'll tell you, when I first started my own practice, I started with it wasn't a low fee. It was a normal fee for a beginning entrepreneur, right? Sorry, a beginning psychologist who first hangs up their shingle. The first time I raised my prices, I literally was petrified, because I was like, oh my gosh, no one's going to pay me this amount of money, blah, 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 blah. And it literally was only $50 an hour difference. And I just I think I had my business for like 2 or 3 years by the time I did this. And so, but then the first person I told the price to, they just said, okay. And I thought, I worked myself all up for nothing. And so now I don't even think about it. I just set my prices, and I'm like, the right people will find me, and I will find them. And I don't negotiate with about my pricing. I had a new client recently who was actually a gentleman, and he was open to paying my fee, but not committing to doing the work, because I require them to commit for at least 90 days. And he's like, can't we just do this on a month-to-month basis? I said, no, because this is either you're committed to doing the work. That has got nothing to do with me. Either you're committed to doing the work or you're not. So if you're committed to doing the work, then we do the work together, and we're doing it for 90 days. And it really is about taking a step back. And here's, I think, my best thing for women. This is another thing that men and women do differently. So women, if they've done something, they don't feel like an expert till they've done something for 10, 15 years. Men, if they've done it for 5 minutes, they're the expert, and they put it on their resume. I mean, am I lying? Isn't this true?
No, it's true. It's true. It is so true. It's very, very true.
So I tell women, look, you are the expert. Just because you're starting a new business does not mean the last 10, 15, 20 years or more that you've been working and gaining experience at all these amazing things that you've been doing. Those don't just disappear. You may be new at being an entrepreneur or new in this one area, but that doesn't mean that you're new. You have experience, and that's what people pay you for. They pay you for your expertise, not really paying you for an hour. They're paying you for what value do you deliver? What service are you delivering? What's your expertise? So if you've got 20, 30 years of expertise behind you, you better be, have a really good price to match that.
Such good advice. Now, I was watching one of your little tip videos on YouTube, and in this particular one, you talk about of the top 500 Fortune 500 companies, only 4% are run by women executives. That is mind blowing.
It is. But it's because of all the unconscious bias and how we're raised. So, where there is a media bias, and just not media now, but just on the whole towards men. So when we look at cartoons for kids, you look at stories, you look at, TV shows, there's a bias towards men. Men are the heroes. The boys are the heroes. The women have ancillary roles. And so, again, this is part of our conditioning. Our conditioning is that, men are the leaders, boys are the heroes, and the women take those sort of, co-anchoring positions. And again, part of it, I think, is the way a lot of job descriptions are created. Part of it is the way women see themselves. Part of it is the way women write their resumes. Because again, until they've done something for 5-10 years, they've not done it. And so women are selling themselves short too, because they don't feel like they are an expert at something or that they've done something enough. And again, if with a male, if they've done something for 5 minutes, I promise you it is on their resume. And so their resume looks amazing, right? And so they get positioned as showing promise for something. Women usually don't get elevated in positions in corporations until they've performed something. And again, this is part of the bias that exists in the corporate world. And so this is one of the things that I've been talking a lot about, because what we see, a lot of amazing women are fleeing the corporate structure. And I don't know that that's a good idea, because what we're going to be left with is sort of a white older male, completely run industry. And we don't want that. We want women in higher positions and more diverse cultural people being in higher positions in corporations. And if everybody leaves, then that will never happen.
Would you say that one of the reasons that women don't push through their fear and all that is because they're afraid of being judged? I find that, at least from my personal experience and observation, I think men don't worry so much about what other people think as much as women do.
Absolutely. Yes. And again, that's how we're conditioned. Women are always concerned about what other people think, about how they look, about how they're perceived. Again, another great example, what do we call little girls who demonstrate leadership? Do you know?
Bossy.
Exactly. Bossy. Do you ever call a boy bossy? No.
Well, I would, but yes.
Usually not, right? We don't normally call boys bossy. That label usually is for girls and women who are strong leaders. So there may be, and usually what happens when you label a kid bossy, you shut them down. You're too bossy is not encouraging to be a leader, is it?
No.
Right. So when we say to somebody, you're being too bossy, then we're telling them, tone it down. Don't speak up. Don't lead. We don't want that in you. So that you take away their voice by doing that.
The thing is, going back to women in the corporate and women starting their own business, I mean, I personally believe that women seem to be more productive. The thing that I see men do is that they have this incredible ability to delegate. What they don't know how to do, they just give to someone else to do.
Correct.
And then more often than not, it is women that carry on those tasks. So what happens to those corporations if all the people that really run the tasks are gone?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Right.
And the other thing too, women can delegate, but oftentimes for women, they have this, well, no one can do it as good as me issue. And so there's that.
I've suffered of that.
Oh, me too. Trust me. I totally get it. I have totally been cured of this particular one, though, I will say. But the other thing too is women often feel the need to prove themselves, right? To get that, you're doing a good job, pat on the back. And so they're constantly trying to prove that they're good enough. And so they take on things. They don't say no. They say yes, 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 yes to everything. And then it becomes too much. And they have this overflowing plate. They feel overwhelmed. They're highly stressed. And then, things, when you have too many balls in the air, eventually something's going to fall. And the thing about delegating also is, again, I think it's a self-confidence issue with women. It's recognizing that you don't have to do it all. You don't have to do it all in order to bring value, in order to for people to see how capable you are. Does not require you to do everything. Men don't have that issue. Women, again, we've been conditioned this way, but I'm all for changing that. What about you?
Yeah, totally. Hey, I'm learning this too.
Yeah.
And based on what you were saying, which I totally agree, and I see it too, that, men have this confidence, if I've done it for 5 minutes, I know how to do it. I can put that on my resume versus
Mhm.
women, like you said, they have to prove themselves for years and years. So would it help to change the mindset, shift the thinking into, it's not about what you've done, it's about what you can do.
So I think it's so yes and no, because I think it's really important to acknowledge and celebrate everything that you've done. And women don't do that. Again, they forget. I've been doing this thing for 5, 10 years. Oh, but I'm starting a new business. Oh, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. Wait, what? You have all this training and expertise. Celebrate everything that you've done, all the things that you bring to the table. So I kind of look at it from the perspective of, I want women to really fully, completely acknowledge who they are and what they bring to the table, and to speak up and speak out and be willing to rise to, see so many women and they're amazing. And then they say, well, I don't want any attention on me. I just kind of I'll just be in the background. And I'm like, why? You're amazing. You have so much to offer and so much to share. But somewhere along the line, they've been taught not to use their voice and not to speak up and not to share who they are and what they've accomplished and to celebrate themselves. And honestly, that pisses me off. And so that's why I'm, out here doing the rah rah thing for women to be like, look, you're amazing. And you need to know that.
Yeah, and I'm total support of this because I held a conference last year, the
Mhm.
Magnificent You Women's Conference, and the whole 2 days was all about mindset.
Yep.
That was the whole thing because like I said, I've been through this, still
Yeah.
going through it, still learning. We have been conditioned, and if we can just rewire that voice that goes on
Mhm.
and become our own cheerleaders,
Absolutely.
right, and it can really make, we can change the world. I was just having this conversation, I think it was a couple of days ago, where I was saying, I think if all the leaders in the world were women, there'd be no wars.
Oh, women handle things differently. So
Yeah,
there would be a whole lot more conversation before we ever got to that point.
exactly. I don't think it
Um,
would get to that.
well, because I mean, not to put it too bluntly, but women don't engage in a pissing contest, which is what often happens, and that's how you end up in a war, right? It's like who's bigger and who's badder, and women are interested in how do we maintain a relationship? How do we fix this? Truly fix this without, I think also what we often do differently is look for win-win outcomes. And I don't think men are sort of naturally prone to doing that, right? So they will look for, how do I win, never mind you. Whereas I think a lot of women, at least I know I do, and this is in my head all the time, like, when I want something or I'm doing something, how do we create a situation where you win and I win? Like everybody wins. And I think that's a great way to look at doing things.
Do you think that maybe it is because women are wired that way, that most of the women feel that maybe by being aggressive, they would be labeled aggressive to be pushing through to what they want?
So you don't have to be pushy. I mean, and that's the thing. You can
No, no,
be
I don't
assertive.
mean pushy, but push through what they want to achieve.
So so I think that's a fear that women have. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. However, I think a lot of women believe that they have to act like men in order to get ahead, and I don't think that's necessarily the way. I mean, some women like myself, I have a much stronger masculine energy than feminine energy, and I'm very clear about that. But it doesn't mean I don't have any intuition and any of that feminine energy, because it drives a lot of the work that I do. And I know how to tap into it and how to access it and how to activate it. I don't need to go anywhere and like, bully my way through, because again, oftentimes that's what men will do. Um, but I think it's for women to see who they are and what awesomeness they bring to the table and lead with that. You don't have to be like a man. You don't have to think like a man. You don't have to act like a man. You don't have to be like a man. You just have to be yourself. And I think so, not just be yourself, but be your most authentic self. I think a lot of women are hiding in a shell, and they're afraid to show their most authentic person. And I think to the extent that women are able to do that, I think that becomes the fuel to their success.
And it's such a shame that they're hiding. The
Absolutely.
ones who are
Because there's
hiding.
so much amazingness out there.
Yeah, yes. So I'm on a mission like you to change that.
That's right. This is what I mean, that's what we have to do. We have to keep fueling women's minds with, because I listen to women, I hear women all the time, and it's, it's like, yeah, no, like that is not, you are so awesome. And these are the things that you can do to help to rewire your brain, to give it the fuel that it needs in order for you to be able to move forward. There's nothing really stopping you except all the words that you're using to describe yourself, to describe your situation, and to describe what it is that you want to do. There's, you may be here and you're trying to get all the way over here. And in the gap is all that mental stew that is just percolating in there, and it's keeping you stuck. And it doesn't have to be there, but you have to be willing to move it, to shift it, and to start fueling your mind with some different ways of thinking, and be open to being different, right? Because if you're like, oh no, this is me, I can't be any other way, then you won't be open to making those shifts, because then you have to be willing to be your truest self.
Which is basically blossoming to who you
Absolutely.
really truly are, right? The essence of
Absolutely.
who you are, just kind of
Yeah,
shedding off the shells and the
exactly.
peels and
Yes.
of conditioning, because that's what it is. The
It's all conditioning. I mean,
layers
we've
of
all been conditioning. We've all been conditioned. And it's just a matter of knowing what your conditioning is. Like, what is your story? What are the stories that you have that you believe to be true that may not be true? They're just your perspective. And what do you want the story to be? And how do we then recreate that?
yeah, and it's not just about how the environment we grew up in. Sometimes it's the environment we're in
Absolutely. Yep.
that can be a negative that we have
Yeah.
to be
It's a
very
current
mindful.
toxicity. Yeah. Well, one of the things I was telling the group today is, who you associate yourself with actually really does matter. So, where you spend your time, who you listen to, because people can speak life into you, or they can speak like, I don't know about not death, but just like, so much negativity that you don't feel like you have the energy to feel elevated, to do the work that you need to do. But, you want to pay attention to that. And there's going to be people who just don't understand you. Being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, and that's okay. Like, my father doesn't understand what I do, and tell him that's okay. It's okay. You this is not what you did in your career, and I understand that you don't understand, and I understand that you worry about me, and I love you for that. Thank you. And I got this.
That's such a good way to say it. Because my parents did not understand for the longest
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
why I would be an entrepreneur, like, and all
Because
the
it's not
they
safe.
yeah, they can think of everything that can go wrong,
Of
right?
course.
It's
Yes.
all the negative, but it'd be safer to have a job.
Yes.
No,
Until
I
they
had
fire
a
you
job.
and they lay you
Exactly.
off.
That's exactly what happened
Right.
to me. I had a job
Right.
and the company folded and let me go,
Yep.
and then I couldn't find work.
Yep.
So it got to the
It's
point where,
happened to
well,
so many people.
you
Yeah.
know, it's not like,
Yep.
I have to hire me if nobody
Yes.
else is going to do it.
Exactly. Yep.
So yeah, I just kind of have
Bet on
to.
yourself, right? That's the best thing to do.
So what would you say? Well, I guess you already said it. So that surround yourself, like if you are in a toxic environment, um, just learn to deal with it and communicate so that you can set some sort of, like, what would you say to somebody that can't get away from the environment? Like your parents don't live
Yeah.
with you, right? Like your dad
Right.
doesn't live with you. But what would you say to women who may be in a situation where they are around people they can't get rid of? Let's put it that
Absolutely.
way.
So the thing is, I think it's to recognize it's coming from a loving place. That people is the reason that people say those is because they're worried about you. They're worried about you not having money. They're worried about you, failing. They're worried about you getting rejected. They just worry about your safety. And it's coming from a loving place. That doesn't have to stop you. It's just accepting that this is how so one, don't try to change them. Don't try to convince them. You don't need their support. Like, they're there for you. They're not kicking you out, right? You all are together. But just recognize that it's not necessarily toxic. It's simply a difference of opinion. And if you don't make it a big emergency, then there's nothing really to do. Okay, you don't get it. That's cool. I know that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they'll see when you keep doing the work and you keep growing your business, and eventually once you start making money, people stop talking. That's what happens, because again, that's their issue. Their issue isn't that they don't want you to do this. They just don't want you to fail, and they don't want you to get hurt, and they don't want you to lose money, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things to really keep in mind, and to be smart about the choices that you make in your business and how you spend your money.
And that is so true what you just said, that sometimes until you make money, then the whole story changes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because they were on board from the very beginning.
Of course, then the whole tune changes. Like, really? I don't remember this.
Yeah, exactly.
I supported you. I believed in you. Really?
Yeah. Really? I don't remember that. Yeah.
That was not the conversation I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Samantha, this is such valuable information. So many good tips. So
Thank you.
so many nuggets. So
Yeah.
many little things that we can use right away. If people want to reach you, where can they find you?
The best place to find me is on my website, askdrsamantha.com. I'm also on Facebook. If you just type in my name, Dr. Samantha Madising, I come up, and I have a Facebook fan page, a business page. I'm all over social media, so come visit and say hi. I love Facebook is my favorite place to connect with people, and you can always find me through my website to email me and get in touch.
And you have lots of cool videos with tips.
Yes.
Which are awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you for being part of the series. I have one last question that may come off field.
Okay.
When you were little,
Mm-hmm.
back up when you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A teacher.
Really?
Mm-hmm. When I was a really little girl. So I actually say that's what I am, because that's what I do. I just don't teach in a classroom, but I teach people about the brain. I teach people how your mind works. I teach people how to, live a life that they love, and, how to enjoy themselves. So I feel like I am still doing that, just not English and math.
Oh, so originally you were thinking English and math?
No, I just wanted to teach. I just thought it would be the coolest thing to teach people. And so, I just chose a different way of doing that.
And think about it, it's a better way because you're reaching a wider reach than just a classroom.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
living the dream, a much
That's
bigger
right.
way. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
It's been wonderful.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for
It
being
was
here.
my pleasure.